I love the quote by, I attended a conference in Berlin last week, and Todd Benjamin, CNN, former CNN, current CNN commentator, said, "A crisis is an opportunity too good to waste." And I think that's what we have. We have to look at this this way as well. Things are going to get tighter. Things are going to be a bit strained. But, you know, we all can learn how to clean house a little bit in those respects as well. The second part of the publication deals with why Europe still matters. And it makes the point that U.S. firms who are not investing in the EU are missing out on huge opportunities. That the size and the wealth of Europe sets it apart from any other major geographical formation in the world, and that in 2010 Europe accounted for roughly 30% of global personal consumption expenditures, which is a greater share than the U.S., which is about 20%, and it is more than doubled that of the BRICS combined. So just the personal consumption, I'll get back to that in a little bit, should be extremely attractive for U.S. firms. The European economies remain some of the most competitive in the world. Seven out of the top-ranked World Economic Forum's surveys, 7 out of the top-ranked most competitive world economies are European economies, so that's a very big selling point as well. Source of innovation was mentioned earlier today as well, how Europe is an ongoing and very strong and consistent source of new innovation. About 25% of total global R&D in 2010 and in 2011 was from European countries, while Japan and India were each about half that. There's the whole concept of what the author has termed the China next door, and that the China next door are those countries that are on the periphery of Western Europe, where usually the focus of U.S. investment has been traditionally. But this China next door is that and especially a very important one in personal consumption. Personal consumption in Central and Eastern Europe doubled between 1990 and 2005, and doubled again from 2005 to 2010. A huge selling point for U.S. corporations to do business in Europe. The total output of Europe's periphery, and I should define that a little bit. It is considered as Central and Eastern Europe. The Middle East, Turkey, and Africa, mostly Northern Africa. These are countries, many U.S. companies are accessing those, many U.S. companies who are operating in Europe are accessing these periphery states as currently and are being very successful at that. One of the biggest myths that we are trying to dispel with this publication, and it was our specific request that it be included, is this myth, and I have it happen every time I go back to the U.S., that I speak to my friends back in Minnesota, and I speak about what I do. And I work as the director of the American Chamber of Commerce in Slovakia. Part of my job is to encourage U.S. investment into Slovakia. And they say, "Oh, yeah, but you're taking jobs away from the U.S. You're encouraging companies to leave the U.S. And I say, no. There's a big difference between encouraging companies to move their operations and accessing this huge European market. And of course, we have, we try to sell the regional market that can be accessed from Slovakia, which is a very large market, and we tried to make that point, and that's what this publication deals with as well, is that the prosperity in Europe equals prosperity in the U.S. Companies who have reached their potential in the U.S. can access the European market, expand into the European market, and that actually creates prosperity, jobs, and wealth back in the United States. And that concept is not very well understood, and it's frequently misunderstood. For those of us who are trying to encourage companies to expand into the European market. that's the gist of the publication, and to sum it all up, it's the one-sentence summary of the publication is that U.S. firms, you know, there's a bit of a bumpy road right now. U.S. firms should stay the course, stay steady, man. Things are going to be okay, and keep the focus on Europe, where you know there is a safe environment for investing, relatively low corruption by comparison to many other parts of the world, great infrastructure, and great benefits in many, many other ways. I've heard of, you know, I don't want to go there, but there, you know, I've heard of companies, U.S. companies who have pulled out of China saying, never again. It cost us more than it was worth, and we're getting out, and they're actually moving to Europe. So, Joanna, that's the short summary for the publication.
Short summary, and we encourage you actually to have to take your copy of the publication. Roman, you have been actually chairing AmCham for many years, for over 8 years, I think, until last year, was it? And so you have a lot of experience in terms of discussing and encouraging American companies to not only to invest in Poland, but to stay in Poland, to actually grow in Poland, to reinvest in Poland. So how do you, I mean, in Poland, meaning this part of Europe, so what do you think, how actually from the perspective of looking at various types of sectors and various types of American companies that have already located here, what are the important factors actually for them to make these decisions on investment in our part of the world?
Thank you. Yes, in all my history, I was always encouraging investments to Poland with disregard to other European countries, and now I have to sort of switch to become more European, which is probably the sign of time. And I would like to point out, refer to what Jake said to the publication, which is very good, because I focus on a couple of points. There are 2 points. One is I would like to raise with you. One is the issue of whether or not we really have a problem with Europe versus the rest of the world. And the second is the trade versus investments, which is also raised in the publication. The first subject it was very nicely brought to our attention by Mr. Knight's, Secretary Knight's speech. The problem is not that we don't see investments, we see American investments, and the Europe-American relationship is a no-brainer. I mean, two huge economies, they should work together. Our concerns about the investments in Europe by American companies comes from the fact that there is visible lesser support for that action from the American administration, because they will start focusing, and you hear it from American diplomats, they are focusing on BRIC, they are focusing on China, they are not focusing on Europe anymore. And Mr. Knight said very interesting things. He reminded us that when Poland was in great need, when you heard Wałęsa saying that Kohl was saying, oh no, we are not going to help you, we get enough of you. At that time, when Poland was in the most need for influx of capital, knowledge, know-how, who came to Poland? The Wałęsa's generals, General Electric, General Motors, and other American companies. They came. They were the biggest investors. We don't remember today because we focus on Europe in Poland, but without the American companies, United States was the biggest investor in Poland for first 10 years, at least, if no longer. And also there was a huge assistance from the US aid, huge assistance from non-profit organizations, and the business came through beautifully. And so that where there is a need, American investors are there. Now, once Poland became more self-sustainable, that focus sort of was lost. And you know, now the American companies are there. They're investing as much as this is a business indicated and makes business sense, but they are not focusing on Poland anymore because Poland is self-sustainable. And I think that you can relate it to the whole Europe. Europe is such a strong economy that does not require the encouragement from the administration for investments in this country. Nevertheless, you know, just to say how wonderful Europe is I would second the opinion that Europe is so fantastic place for investment because Europe is the consuming region of economy versus the BRIC where they basically produce more than they consume. And the consumption in Europe means that there is a re-export and trade to the United States, and the investments are more productive in terms of mutual relationship. And Europe, now, if you compare Europe to the to the BRIC countries, you can see that you can find in Europe very nice blend of very well developed countries and less developed, developing countries. So you can find the amenities that American investors might be looking in the developing countries, also in Europe, in the developing countries within Europe. There is still a room for inexpensive labor and for higher risk that you can find in China, India, and anywhere else. And at the same time, this is a region which is legally so well designed. I mean, the first thing that any country did in order to join EU was to adopt the EU law, harmonization. Harmonization is a phenomenal aspect because it basically forces the local legislation to adopt laws in a very speedy way without argument because it's required by EU. In order to join, you have to do that. So we don't. I would argue that we probably don't need this kind of attention from the government, U.S. government, for investments because the investment is going on. So we took things in our hands, and here I have a publication that we are preparing in Poland for the Polish-American Summit. The idea, we had one Polish-American Summit in 2004, 2003, at the time when it was still very much needed and we had to encourage American investments in any way we could, and the government was behind it. And you know, the idea to repeat it was when came through in my conversation with the head of the Polish organization, Henryka Bochniarz, when Mr. Obama came to Poland. And it was supposed to be a small event, half a day, a couple of companies, and now it became a huge event, almost lasting 2 days, right, with a big publication that we produced. And Mr. Knight mentioned that in his speech as an example how we can develop relationship between Europe and the United States. I invite you to take a look at it. This is a publication which summarizes the possibility of investments in Poland, which is Europe, and the things that have to be done in order to encourage investments. So let me now switch to the second issue I wanted to take. For several years, since Mr. Obama said that he wants to double American trade with American exports, the trade has become the focus point of our U.S. commercial service. And for those who have dealt with U.S. commercial service, you know this is the outpost that is dealing with the American investments abroad. And until that time, U.S. commercial service was into investments. I participated personally in 4 different trips of the U.S. ambassador to the United States to encourage investments in Poland. But ever since that thing happened, the trade has become a focus, and all of a sudden there is no pressure for investments. So you look at our resources, and we even had a young man who the American Chamber of Commerce in Poland helped him to finance, because it costs a little money, to produce his PhD thesis, which take an argument with the idea that trade discourages investments, and you can choose between trade and investments. The theses are investments increases trade. And in this book, as you said, we have a very good information, many very good informations, but one of them is that related party trade, which is the trade caused by American investments abroad in Europe, is responsible for 30% of export to Europe. So trade is obviously connected to the investments. And as much as we don't have to worry, in my view, about having the American administration assisting American companies in investing in Europe, in terms of the distinction between trade and investments, we have to do our job and show that indeed the trade is a function of investments. The more investments you have, the more trade you are going to generate, especially, and now I'll go back to the Europe as a place for investments, especially in a place like Europe, where you have very strong economy, very strong consumption. You were going to show us what the consumption is.
Yeah. So here's the graph of consumption from. Thank you. From 1990 to 2010, and I don't know if you can see that. That's basically emerging Europe, what they call it, and then it's compared, and the lighter line is China. So it's even behind China's rate of consumption. But I think the graph alone is pretty dramatic when you see that development, that dramatic upsurge in consumption.
Exactly. So the point is that whenever you invest in a country like China, where the consumption is limited, and I just talked to the very high official of one of the largest U.S. banks, and he said, don't expect consumption in China to grow because in their culture is no consumption. They have to save. They don't have social security. Then you have the situation that in the countries where the consumption is not that high, your investment is going to be in production. You're going to use their manufacturing jobs, and that takes jobs away from America. So investments at in that narrow area is really impairing American manufacturing possibility. But if you invest in countries with high consumption, like Europe, then of course the trade follows and the consumption is there. So export goes with the consumption because you produce not for the American market in those countries, you produce for European market. You know, it's easier, and I'm sure that Mr. Freyberg will tell you that it's easier to produce in those countries to sell the product, and the components still come from the US. So there's a trade following investments is better than sending the whole product from the US. And so, you know, that's my point. The investments increases trade in places like Europe.
Thank you, Roman. My question to Mr. Freyberg would be, is Europe becoming less and less relevant with emerging markets like China and the BRICS countries? 3M is one of the companies that is into all possible sectors. And I believe you have production facilities all over the world, so you can compare, let's say, investments in Europe to what kind of success stories you have, and what is the relevance of Europe with regards to India, let's say, or the BRICS countries in terms of your investment.
I hope it works. First, I would like to express my disappointment because you force us to compete with Mr. Klitschko, you know. So,
I know, yeah, we can't.
Even
yeah,
on
we
the
have no
ring,
chance.
Mission Impossible, but even in panels I say it's Mission Impossible, yeah. But what is good, that majority of the audience are the ladies, you know. And before I move to the subject matter, I would like to not comment, but you mentioned very nice statement of Mr. Wałęsa. You know that to translate Wałęsa is almost mission impossible because he's using a special expression and so on. And I know that story from the my colleague of mine who was translating this famous about generals. It was with Bush. And they're talking, and then he said, got the question, what Poland needs? And Joanna said, blah, 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 we need generals, and stop. So Bush was asking, they're looking, American delegation are looking, that guy who was translating, I was thinking, what the hell Wałęsa has in mind, you know? And then after good 1 minute, he said, we need General Motors, we need General Electric, and so on. So that is the story. No, it's really true. And there is a many with Wałęsa like that. Things that we need. So I will be very brief because I would like to comment or answer your question from, let's say, from the another angle. First, one general observation, which is my observation, is not 3M observation, that I think that the world cannot produce everything in one region or in one country. So I think that we need the world economy reach the kind of the saturation point. So the growth of the investment in China and Southeast Asia will not grow. I mean American corporation, of Europe, and so on, because enough is enough. World cannot afford to produce everything in one, even the biggest country in the world. But it is, we may discuss on that on the later occasion. And then, last statements of Obama, last statements of President of France, Hollande, clearly said that we have to prepare some incentives to keep our industry in our motherland. So I think that the next months, next years will show that Europe and US will take some, I would say, defense against moving everything to that part of the world. Okay, but it doesn't mean that I question the globalization, because the globalization is a fact and the globalization will stay. It's no return from the globalization. And by the way, one of the best definition of globalization I heard is like that in US, the American is coming to the dealer to buy the car. And the dealer is asking, what kind of car would you like to buy, sir? Huh? He said, of course, I'm American. I would like to buy American car. So would you like to buy Ford Mercury made in Taiwan or Honda Prelude made in Ohio? That is the answer of globalization. So now move to kind of the philosophy of 3M. So our, for the investment is, one may summarize, and we use that motto like that, locally connected but globally present. And now I will move to some specific. There are American corporations, and 3M is among them, that we are not chasing for the low labor cost. It's not the predominant fact for us to choose the investment in any country, labor cost.
You want cost competitive labor?
No, but because our production is very capital intensive, not the labor intensive. The simple example, we invest in Wrocław close to $400 million, and we create 1,100 jobs. With that kind of investment in any other production, special mass, it will be 3,500. So yeah, the labor cost is not the factor, probably a factor for us to make a decision where to locate the investment. And the second, which is the most important, I think, that we invest always where our customers are, So the main, I would say, basis for the decision is that all the regions in the world should be self-sufficient for 3M products. It is clear enough, yes? Europe, as of today, is for us 80–85% self-sufficient.
So it producing in Europe, you're supplying
yes, whatever is produced in Europe is sold in Europe, 85%. And it is obvious that in eastern part, central eastern part of Europe, when we belong, our self-sufficiency was zero because we didn't produce. The first manufacturing site in that part of the Europe for 3M was Wrocław. And we start to invest. So our vision is that it's not surprised that we invest so much, because our target is to reach 80%, but by 2016, 90% self-sufficient. So whatever we sell in that part of the world, 90% should be produced there. That is why Super Hub was built in Wrocław and another in Turkey. No, Turkey is Europe, if I am not wrong, you know. So the self-sufficiency, it is very interesting concept. So in that case, you know, and we invest a lot of China, and China, that I am not 100% sure, but it's very close to reach 90% already. What does it mean? That we will not continue to invest so heavily in China. Of course, having manufacturing sites, having factories, you have to invest because spare parts, you have to renovate and so on. I don't know how it is in English to say that. So that is, and 3M is not alone among American corporations who implement that kind of the philosophy. Why? We would like to be close to the customers, and customers are always local. Why? Because we don't sell a massive consumer goods. For us, it's just 10%, this post-it notes and that stuff. Because being close to the customers, you provide the service. If you have a high-tech products which are using as semi-products to other factories, you have to send technicians, you know, to help them to solve the problems and so on.
But in comparison, for example, to China, would you have different type of, let's say, would the type of production in Poland and in Asia be different? Or is it the same type of products, the same type of, let's say, advancedness in terms of
No.
research and development centers? Would this be the same kind of quality?
No, to develop research and development center, it is a third stage. As you know, I was employee #1 for 3M Poland. So first it was a distribution. When I heard, when I visit 3M in US, I found that you are not important, but you are, let's say, without production, you are Mr. Nobody at 3M. Because production, it is something which is really counts. Then before, for us, only I don't like to offend any marketing people, you know, because believe me, marketing and sales is much easier than to organize the production. Mm-hmm. So, and the first step, distribution, production, and then R&D. And then we are very close to open. Already we have 40 people working in labs. So the first step is to have a lab, but real lab, which not only be devoted to customize the products, to develop the product for local needs, but to develop something which in Poland we are calling badania podstawowe, basic research. It means physics, nanotechnology, and so on, not for the current production. And we are very close to have this third leg of 3M here in
And I think this is important because this is exactly what differentiates us between kind of with Asia, and this is where kind of Europe really does compete in terms of technology transfer and then the advancedness, let's say, of technology, as in comparison, for example, to Asia or the BRICS countries.
By the way, BRIC idea was created. 3M have a BRIC. It was Poland in the end. Mm-hmm. So they did it. They didn't ask me for that when I met, because if they would ask me, I would say no. Because how you can be in one group with India, China, Brazil, and Russia, you know? But anyway, 1 year we work under the umbrella of BRIC.
Mm-hmm. Good thing they didn't put Poland at the beginning.
Yeah. No, but Jesus. That's a good joke. And to answer your export, now from our perspective, if Europe, I'm talking about the Europe, when you don't have a borders, you don't have a custom duties, the goods are flowing, so soon it will be very difficult to calculate what is the export, you know. Of course, whatever we produce in Wrocław and is going to US, 80% of Scotch gas is going to US from that factory. It is export from that, but then something like that. So export is probably soon we have to redefine the what does really export mean in the world of globalization and so on. You probably know that I almost 10 years was dealing, before my life with 3M, I was dealing with GATT, you know, this General Agreement Tariffs on Trade, what now is World Trade Organization. So even it was good 20 years ago, but still was that discussion. What in the next decades export will mean, if no barriers, no anything, you know. By the way, when I was in Geneva, Russia, Soviet Union started to get the status of member after 20 years, and they still are applying for that status.
Paweł, I think like BRIC countries especially, I think apply to the automotive sector. When you are talking to the original equipment manufacturers in Detroit and back in the US, actually you have the feeling that everybody invests in India, China, and Brazil, and Mexico. Everybody's talking about those countries, but still, like one of the generals, General Motors, has recently actually announced more plans for reinvestment in Poland. So, in case of GM, actually Europe and especially Poland still matters. So how actually important is the Gliwice facility and your Polish facility to the group that you have decided on further reinvestment?
Gliwice plant was established in 1998. At that time, Poland was out of European Union. Infrastructure was weak. However, we answered to the invitation from President Wałęsa, and with the high risk, but the corporation decided to go into Poland. The main reason for this was that the strategy is similar. We want to produce where we are selling the cars. And back in 1996, when the decision to invest was made, actually, the Polish car market was growing very fast. And finally, in 1999, it reached more than 640,000. To compare with the Polish new car market today, it's below 300,000, so it's less than half of 1999 results. However, in spite of the weakness of the Polish car market, General Motors is reinvesting in Gliwice. The first investment was, if I recall correctly, 700,000 Deutschmark. Do you remember Deutschmark? It's equivalent of 350 million euro. And we started from production of old Opel Astra model, which was supposed to be sold in Central Eastern Europe under nickname Classic, a cheaper version of older car for lower income countries. Over the time, Gliwice plant started to learn. We received allocation for the production of newer models, and then even newer models. And finally, in 2009, there was a breakthrough for Gliwice. Gliwice became a home plant for the newest generation of Opel Astra. Opel Astra is a compact car, which is the most important car for Opel in Europe. So basically, Gliwice became a home plant for the most important product of company in Europe. And recently, as you told, we are very happy to announce that we will receive allocation of Opel Astra 5th generation, and we are planning to start the production in 2015, which is a great success because Opel Gliwice, together with the UK plant in Ellesmere Port, those two plants would be the exclusive manufacturer of Opel Astra globally, which is really great success, especially during such difficult times. And now you could ask question why. There is no simple answer to this. European car market is in a deep crisis. We went from the level of 16, 17 million new cars a year to current outlook of 12, 13 million, which means that overcapacity is a huge problem. And a lot of manufacturers, European manufacturers, they know already that they would be forced to make tough measures, including plant closures. So in this context, the success of Gliwice is really striking. And when I'm looking for reasons, I think that there are not more than one or two or even three. It's very complex. First of all, Gliwice proved to be the best plant in terms of quality, flexibility, and the time of reaction. What we are doing in Gliwice is we are getting a message. You are to produce a new car, and the only question is what is the start of production date? And then in the history of Gliwice, we never failed. We are starting exactly the day we were told to, with the quality up to 99.9%, which is the highest globally. And we are very proud of this. what is behind? It's of course technology. It's a new plant, so it's much easier than in a plant built in 50s or 40s. However, I think that the critical factor of the success is workforce. In a wider term, not only management, but also workers who are putting the car together. We are very proud to have one of the youngest and most motivated employees in the corporation, and they are eager to learn, and actually they are delivering the highest quality in Europe.
And you mentioned that you start exporting your
oh yeah.
stuff.
I mean, basically, nobody knows, but after a couple of years, 14 years, Gliwice is export plant of quality directors for the corporation. So every plant in Europe right now is having a quality director coming from Gliwice, which is a very nice sign. But that's not enough, actually, because when the market is down and the company is not making money, we have to make tough decisions. So I think that as a paradox, European crisis plus the current situation of Opel in Europe and majority of European car manufacturers is forcing company to make tough but very reasonable decision. So they decided to go for the best plant. So it's a paradox, but this European crisis is helping very much. Absolutely. Not only to Gliwice plant, I think to Poland generally. Another very important issue is that Gliwice is located in the special economic zone, which offers certain tax benefits. And we are sure that it will continue till 2020, which also contributed in a positive way to the decision. We shouldn't forget about generally positive situation of Poland in terms of macroeconomics. The situation is actually, compared to other European countries, very, very positive. Infrastructure is much better, especially in Silesia. We have actually 2 highways next to the Gliwice plant right now, with easy access to our key markets. There is a great supplier base in the region because in the meantime, south of Poland, Czech Republic, Slovak Republic, and Hungary developed an intensive network of manufacturers of car components. And it's a huge automotive cluster, which is not maybe formal, but informal, yes, indeed, it's very important. And finally, I think that also we started to develop the R&D component in Gliwice. We are having right now almost 80 engineers working mainly in manufacturing engineering center. However, they are ready to prepare manufacturing in every corner of the globe at the highest quality and at, let's say, openly reasonably good cost level. So I think that those are the major reasons for success of Gliwice plant.
Coming back to the name of the panel, investing in Europe: difficulties, hopes, and promises. Actually, where do you see the hopes and promises actually of investing in Europe? Where is our biggest advantage with comparison to, for example, Asia? Where is our future actually as Europe? And I asked this question. I will start with Roman, and I think we will conclude this panel with trying to find the answer on where is the future of Europe, and what can be our most competitive advantage in comparison to especially Asia in our transatlantic connections with US.
Well, I think the future is so bright we should wear shades. It's a no-brainer. Europe is the huge economy, and United States is a huge economy. And today, everybody on the panel and in the keynote speech was saying that those two economies are destined to rely on each other. They are well suited, they are very similar to each other, and actually the only thing we need is a free trade agreement between Europe and the United States, and we should work toward that.
And the visa waiver.
Visa waiver is a sort of replacement issue. It's a more ambitional an issue for business in the United States. In Polish business, getting visa is not a problem. And I don't know if you guys know, but the visa waiver is only a waiver of the promise, but you still get a visa at the entrance at the New York or port of entry. And interestingly, Mr. Wałęsa would not be able to get on visa waiver. He still didn't get a visa. Why? Because he was arrested in his life. Most of the Polish government, people who were incarcerated during the martial law, had arrests on the records, and those people are not eligible for visa waiver. So, absolutely, visa waiver is a non-issue. Really, it's not non-issue. Right now, Poles are getting visas very easily, and if they are going to if they go to work in the United States, which is the main reason why we don't have a visa waiver, they're going to be caught at the United States port of entry, and there will be tragical event because at that point they are going to be put into a local county jail and sent back to Poland by spending a night with the criminals there.
So, coming back to the question,
that's not the subject. I think that I was trying to point out those two economies are destined to each other, and their future is intertwined. In terms of the profitability, 50% of the total U.S. Foreign affiliates account. For American foreign affiliates located in Europe account for 50% of total U.S. income. The blend in Europe of the inexpensive labor and very good consuming market and high technology like Germany is a dreamed blend of attractiveness for American investments. We don't need the American government's encouragement anymore because those two economies are on the pilot. They are going to be looking at each other, investing in each other, no matter whether we are encouraging it or not. It's going to happen. So the attractiveness of Europe is phenomenal, and even though the U.S. is now fascinated with BRIC. And they are putting their attention to it. Europe is the place to be. I mean, you probably know the book by George Friedman, the Friedman who is the futurist, economical futurist, who wrote this next 100 years book, which was made notorious in Poland because it says in 100 years Poland will be one of the four major powers in the world. That book is very indicative. You read why Mr. Friedman came at this conclusion. It indicates that some of the BRIC countries might disintegrate, and you never know. Poland is a country which is phenomenal, and Poland out of Europe is an example of this developing country. The country is coming through with Dorota for the 20th anniversary of. Dorota as a head of director of the American Chamber of Commerce in Poland. We did a survey of American investors in Poland for the 20th anniversary of AmCham in Poland. And you know what they came up with was the most important in Poland? Two issues stand out. One is location in Poland, which is location in Europe. And second is the labor force. The labor force, the people, the people that you said, very motivated, very well educated, hungry for success people. So, future is bright.
Jake, from the AmCham Europe perspective, what do you think? What is the promise and the future?
May I have two comments from the Slovak perspective first? One is getting back to the automotive industry. I mean, the automotive industry is the driving force of the Slovak economy. We have three major automotive producers. But what's been most interesting about that is that as that developed, and as it's especially the second and third came online, they were Peugeot from France and Hyundai Kia from Korea, is this vast network of suppliers, which you alluded to, that has hundreds and hundreds of suppliers. My point is that investment draws investment, and that stability is very important. Those investors come because they know they have a market. They're already targeted. They already got their target market in place already. So that draws investment, and they may draw other investors as well. So that stability, you know what you're going to get. You know what the climate is like, what the investment climate is like. You know, you go to India or you go to Brazil. Political stability, economic stability, monetary stability, pretty questionable, But whenever I speak about investment is, investing in Slovakia, from my perspective, is that stability. You pretty much know what you're going to get, and you pretty much know what the situation is going to be like in 5 or 10 years, barring something really dramatic. Who knows about India or China or Brazil? What can happen there? So that stability is a really defining factor.
Piotr, can I ask you to conclude as well?
I will challenge Roman. Future for Europe is bright, but for our region, who is going to invest in France, for example? 35 hours a week. Trade unions very powerful. Italy, you cannot fire anybody after 5 or 7 years in Italy. Austria, same stuff, Germany, same. So if I mention something that I have a problem, we never have a problem with trade unions, our American colleagues don't quote me and don't put to the press that. I said, my goodness, never, don't mention even that. Because of this soft, not only the political stability, definitely in Europe. So the future is bright, but for Poland, Slovakia, probably Russia, the bulk of the investment will be in that region. And through EMI and General Motors, I see we're a living example of that. And I would like to second what my colleague said. Credibility. For American corporation, credibility is the most important. Once you prove that you do something, they will come. American Chamber of Commerce should not go to US to encourage them. They will come. And our first success, which was the beginning of the story, was Scotchcast. From groundbreaking ceremony to opening, and it's a complicated production. It's not just, it's a very complicated production, 11 months. And those smart American engineers came and said, Piotr, we would never open that in 11 months in US. And after that, all other investments were very easy to get.
Predictability then in Europe. Paweł, in one sentence, please.
Maybe three. I fully agree. For General Motors, the most important car market globally is China, definitely. Second is home market, US and Canada. And Europe used to be number 2, just after the US market. Now it's let's say, fighting with Brazil and India. So we cannot forget about BRIC, because in automotive industry we will not survive without them. However, globalization is also a problem. If you want to order a car with the red color, which is a special color called red flame, you cannot do it. Why? Because the only factory producing the pigment to the paint was in Japan. And unfortunately, in the area close to the earthquake. Second, why Toyota lost position number 1 on the global car market? And now General Motors is number 1. Why they lost number 2 position to Volkswagen Group? Because they were hit by tsunami after the earthquake in Japan. Then they got another hit because there was a flood in Thailand. And because the only suppliers of certain parts, critical parts, were there, they couldn't produce enough cars to meet the global demand. We at General Motors were looking at this. There was a special team looking at the progress in Japan and Thailand. We managed to overcome the problems. But the lesson from this was very, very simple. If we want to be globally competitive, knowing that China, Brazil, Russia, India are the most important growing markets, we cannot forget about old good Europe. And I agree with you. Our suppliers located in Central Europe proved to be perfect. Price competitive, quality excellent, and management in General Motors decided to go for them. Why? Because maybe some parts from China or from India would be cheaper, but if there is a problem with earthquake or transportation problem or anything else, it's much easier for us to ask for a part component from Slovak Republic, Czech Republic, or Poland. And that's why I agree with you. The Central European cluster, automotive cluster, has a bright future. So we will not forget about China because it's the biggest market, but we will not forget about Slovak Republic, Czech Republic, and Poland because it's like a safe region for the whole company. In case of anything happening there, you've got another leg, I mean the second leg, to keep the business running.
And especially in these days of just-in-time delivery.
Exactly.
Yes, of course.
Never think that the climate is also working in our favor.
It's very difficult actually to run a panel just between Mr. Klitschko and the party. So I would like to thank our panelists and thank you very much for participation. And I know that I guess some transport is waiting for us just outside of the door. Thank you very much for attending this panel, and I encourage you again to take a copy of our reports. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
One final note on that. The website for where you can find it's www.amchamsineurope.org, if I'm right. .com. This publication is there also as an ebook and a short video that goes along with this publication. So feel free to distribute it on behalf of us. Thank you.